This year's flu strain is so bad. The office was half empty on Monday.
Actually, Shota, I'd bet that half of the people who phoned in sick were faking it. It was Super Sick Monday.
What are you talking about, Chuck?
It was the Monday after Super Bowl Sunday, aka party time. The number varies somewhat from year to year, but about 15 million Americans probably came up with excuses to not show up for work on Monday. A lot of people stay up late with the post-game shows and parties, you see, and many of them end up giving work a miss the following day.
I've seen a survey that found that a quarter of Americans think the day after the Super Bowl should be a public holiday.
I'm all for it. Even if employees do come into work, productivity is way down the Monday after the big game.
This reminds me of something I've been meaning to ask for some time. What's the proper procedure to follow when you're too sick to go to work? Do we have to call? Can a spouse or partner do it on our behalf? Or is it all right to just send an email?
There are different schools of thought about how to report that you're too sick to work. I'd recommend talking to your supervisor in advance to determine whether a phone call is necessary or just an email is enough.
Some managers prefer what they see as the efficiency of email. Others are more traditional and want the personal touch of a phone call. And then there are those who are okay with an email, but expect employees who are feeling under the weather to follow up with a phone call.
The advantage of phoning in sick is that you and your boss can talk about how long you expect to be away and what work needs to be done in your absence.
And I guess they could also get a sense of whether you're faking it. Not that any of us would ever do that.
Heaven forfend. In my humble opinion, email is just fine. Most employers are in the habit of checking their email before they leave for work in the morning. If they know someone isn't going to be coming in, they can get a head start on adjusting people's schedules accordingly.
So, what do American managers consider valid reasons for missing work?
If you're not suffering from anything more than the sniffles, I think you should report for work. But if you've got a stuffed nose, a cough, chest congestion, or a throwing up, it's best to call in sick. And never ever go to work if you've got a fever.
Yeah, if there's one thing I hate, it's a die-hard workaholic who insists on reporting for work no matter what. They seem to wear their illness as a badge of honor. But they're putting everyone else's health at risk. I mean, these days, it isn't so hard to work from home, is it?
Very true. Studies have found that what's known as presenteeism ultimately costs employers money. It reduces productivity, adds to the risk of workers being injured on the job, and increases healthcare costs.
Pardon my ignorance, but what exactly is presenteeism?
It's the opposite of absenteeism. As I'm sure you know, absenteeism refers to workers regularly staying away from work for no good reason. Presenteeism is when employees come to work when they have ample reason not to.
Okay, here's another question for you. How much information about your physical condition do you need to share with your employer when you're feeling out of sorts?
Tough question. I think a lot depends on what kind of relationship you have with your boss. If you and your boss aren't that close or haven't worked together that long, I'd err on the side of being a bit formal. I'd send an email saying something like, "Despite my efforts to stay healthy during this cold and flu season, I woke up this morning feeling sick." Then I would ask to take a day off to rest and recover and prevent germs from spreading around the office. I'd say, perhaps I should have said something at the end of the day yesterday, but I thought I'd feel better after getting a good night's sleep.
Don't you think that could be overdoing it a bit? It sounds like you're writing the story of your life.
Do you think so? Then I'd sign off by saying that I hope to be back at work soon and apologize for my unexpected absence from the office.
I think that might be laying it on a bit thick, Chuck. Most bosses would probably be okay if you just told them you're sick and can't come into work, period. You're not a kid who's faking being sick so you can play hooky from school.
If I were a manager and I received a long, well-written email from an employee explaining why they can't show up for work, I'd be suspicious. Sick people don't have that kind of energy. At least I don't when I feel unwell.
It's a question of timing as well. Too many missed Fridays or Mondays will naturally make bosses wonder whether an employee is really sick. That's not the best way of building a relationship of trust with your boss.
You know, there are days when I feel great physically, but I'm mentally tired. Do you think it's okay to take a mental health day?
I'd say so, as long as you don't make a habit of it. We all have days when stress just gets too much and we need to recharge our mental batteries.
It might be hard to explain that to some bosses. They might think you're just slacking off.
In which case, you might want to tell a white lie and say something vague like you're feeling out of sorts or just plain sick.
A lot depends on how conscientious and reliable a worker you are in general. If you're seen as being hardworking and dependable, then it's much more likely that your supervisor will cut you some slack now and again.
Well, this certainly has been a healthy discussion.
Indeed. And since we all seem to be fine, I suggest we get back to work and help ANA make some healthy profits.